All right, all right, all right. Greetings and welcome back once again. This is Amuna, and you don't know already. I pray everybody is doing well. I told them that I was about to start reading. Give me 2 seconds because we're going to get into this third chapter of Evolution of a Revolutionary by Jasmine Guy on the life of Afeni Shakur. 1 minute. Thank you for that. I had to give the young ones a gentle reminder that I am reading live. So, shout out to everybody who has just joined us, who will hear this on the replay. We're getting into chapter 3. Just to recap, we went through her early life, we went through her situation with her father, her grandfather. What's going on, Queasy? The men in her life. It's building up to, whether knowingly or unknowingly, that the ground or the foundation has been set, that she has anger issues. She's not emotionally in the right place, even though she's bright, even though she's a smart young lady. She's not emotionally in the right place, and she got slapped, according to her testimony, by the elder from Different World. I don't know why Professor. Oh man, why his name escapes me? It was in the earlier episodes, but nonetheless, we're gonna go on with chapter 3, and y'all know that's gonna bother me, so I'm probably look it up on the intermission. Can't remember his name. Anywho, 3, I got a new name, right? And some of this is before I even read this book, I had some thoughts in the earlier videos based on what Billy Garland is saying, and just based on some solonomics, theories and research. And basically, it's substantiating all of those things, that our life is very cyclical in nature, like how you see the tree rings connect and then another season. And we are attracted to a lot of familiarity in our lives, whether negative or positive. And when we're in it, we may not recognize the patterns, but when we step back, we realize that unhealed trauma is what continues to perpetuate in our lives. And yeah, we're seeing that in this book. So let's continue. It's a ripple effect, right? 3, that's chapter 3. I got a new name. Okay. Uh, I got a new name over in Zion. It's mine. It's mine. I declare it's mine. And that's a Negro spiritual. So she usually starts off each chapter with a quotation. For days, I tried to convince Afeni that her life is a movie, especially in the New York 21 trial. I say that's definitely a movie. The drama behind the scenes, your incarceration, solitary confinement, the day they revoked your bail, your closing arguments as you eloquently defend your life. I'm excited. I pitched to Afeni as I have so many times to network execs. You were a high school dropout, bright but unschooled. You came from the dirt roads of rural North Carolina. She's Eastern right now, right? And survived the streets of the lower Bronx. You fought through a violent, impoverished childhood only to rise to a high-ranking official in the Black Panther. Like, she telling her story like the woman don't know it. I come in for the kill. Why this movie is important. This is a 60s story, a woman's story, a Black story, and an American story of survival. Afeni looks at me. It is really quiet in the room since I stopped talking. Even though her face is calm, her fingers ferociously twist a small dreadlock on the side of her head. This was good, she says wryly. You're a smart little bee. Like that would have been toxic for me. Like, we not having that kind of conversation, like calling people out their name. But anyway, uh, well, this is what I see. I don't know. Afeni ponders my pitch. I'm better with books than with movies. Movies leave too much out. They're too manipulative. Movies dictate your feelings. They don't let you choose or decide where to go on your own. You have to give in to the movies. And I know you hate giving in. Afeni ignores my comment. With books, you can decide for yourself. You decide what to see and how to see it. Besides, I'm not up to convincing a bunch of mother blinks who don't even know me that this story is valid, interesting, or any of that blink. I don't want to meet nobody or talk to nobody. A bit antisocial much. I got to argue about how to tell the story and what the theme is, and if there are any white male protagonists in the story so that they can call so that they can call De Niro. I can't with her. I know all this from Pac. It's BS. It's too many folks involved in making a movie. By this time, the son has passed. This is what I don't know if this by this time he's passed. Yeah, by this time he's passed. Um, and he would have been in movies and all of that stuff. So, too many cooks. Too many folks I have to trust or work with or whatever. Afeni is not having it. But it's all in the presentation. It's all about the screenplay, I say. And our choice of directors is crucial. Let me help you envision this. We'll just do one scene, okay? Just take the ride with me for a moment. Now, since we're in New York, we'll do a scene from your life here. Maybe you can remember now that you're back here. Okay, close your eyes. Afeni's eyes relax and close. I guess she realizes there's nothing to lose. It's 30 years ago. Now I'm going to tell you where we are, and you just tell me whatever you can about this day. What do you smell? What do you hear? Who's with you? In the scene, she muses. Yes, in the scene. It is Saturday, 1966, on 125th. Amber tones wash the streets and buildings. Yellow, tan, brown, and black faces dot the sidewalks. They laugh. They frown, some talk, some hustle. Conga drummers pulse on the street corners. Bold head wraps of red, green, and gold bop in and out of markets. Processed dews slide through the streets and glisten in the New York sun. Motown grooves from a passing cab window. Nina Simone wails from the, she really painting the picture, eh? Wails from the eighth flight of a rusty fire escape. It is the day you find your new name, Afeni. She really said that scene. I wait and listen to the gentle hiss of the radiator in my living room. Small children shriek and glee on the sidewalk beneath my window. After a few minutes pass by, Afeni says, 4 women was out that year. Me and Sandra love that song. Her eyes still closed, she starts to sway slowly, rhythmically to a song in her head. She speaks softly at first. My skin is tan, my hair is fine, my hips invite you, my mouth like wine. Whose little girl am I? Anyone who has money to buy. What kind of slackness song this? Who anyone who yeah, who are you, lady? What do they call you? My name is Sweet Thing. I can't. Now Afeni sings in a deep, gritty tone. My skin is brown, my manner is tough. I'll blink the first mother I see. My life has been too rough. I cannot. Is this the same song? I'm awfully bitter these days because my parents were slaves. What do they call me? They call me Peaches. Is that a song? Is that a song? Y'all let me know in the audience if they call me Peaches is a song. Afeni opens her eyes. They are distant and shiny. Sandra, she was my best friend. She was my best friend and she died. We were 18. What did she die of? I asked. Neglect. She was pregnant, didn't know it for a long time though. Earlier that year, she was supposed to have a hysterectomy. At 18? So they've been doing this since the 60s, although I did see a lady who they stole her womb. So at 18, who's advising that you have a hysterectomy? But instead of doing what they said they were going to do, the doctor just took out one of her tubes and left everything else in there. And I've heard of there was a lady. Let me not get off topic. It's still on topic, but there was a lady who this happened to. She went in and they gave her a hysterectomy without her knowledge, right? And didn't even tell her. That's how doctors treated poor folks, like animals. Does do stuff to your body and don't even tell you. She thought she had everything else taken out. So as soon as she felt like messing around, she did and got pregnant. But like I said, she didn't know for about 5 months because as far as she know, her baby making days were over. I thought you said she was 18. How long was Sandra making babies? Where am I? So me and Sandra, we just kept doing our thing, hanging out, doing dope. Wow, dang, son. Hitting the clubs. And we tried heroin during the, wow, you know what? Let me keep going. So she tried heroin, and then this white guy, Henry, was taking care of Sandra, and he gave it to us. So you just took it. He was white on the outside, but he was really black on the inside. Reminds me of the movie Beloved, yo. He was a street dude, and he was good to Sandra. It says he was giving Sandra dope. I don't know. if that's to be qualified as good, but okay. Didn't beat her or nothing. This is where we have a low standard of what good is coming from abuse. She says, I liked him. Anyway, horse made me sick. I suppose that's the dope, the heroin. Deadly ill. So I'll never did it again. But Sandra, she liked it. She liked snorting. Huh? She found out later after she died, she was skin popping too. So the baby just growing in there. In the uterus, she's not supposed to have. I say. And soon as she found out, she stopped drugging. But something else was going on with her by then. One day after work, I was working at the post office. I stopped by to see her. She was looking good too, happy, you know. The last time I saw her, she was just standing there in the doorway waving goodbye to me. Later on the night, hours after I left, she collapsed in the bathroom. Brain hemorrhage, they said. Henry rushed her to the hospital and she died right there on the table. Afeni seems to eye the cold gurney and the heap of her friend lying dead upon it. The miracle was the baby was born alive. But then the nurses came out and they announced real matter of factly that they chose to let the baby die. No incubator, no resuscitation. Can you believe that? They just let the child die. You know, being early and all, they could have helped that baby, but they chose not to. Afeni's eyes dripped, but her face never changes. She talks right through the tears on her cheek as if they've always been there. That was the only friend I ever had, and I was very close to her. I saw her laid out on that gurney, discarded. After she died, I just walked away. Couldn't even go home. I walked the streets for a day. She says that she was blinked up bad. It was the first time in her life that she'd ever felt someone's death. She can still see her alive with a pink house coat on with Henry. Happy. She was my best friend and I will miss her forever. So she has an early injury and didn't process all of what was happening because there was a number of things. The person who you liked is also the person who was feeding your friend the dope. You and your friend were on a bad course. So the chances are that you two were trauma bonded more than having a healthy relationship with one another. It was more of a trauma bond of whatever negativity you two were going through, right? Anywho, Afeni's tears are big now. She wipes her face with the palm of her hand and goes to the kitchen for a paper towel. I'm going to get to the day I changed my name, though. She chuckles through the paper towel. I haven't forgotten the scene we're in. The pain of having someone die hurts so bad you feel like you can't breathe, I say. Afeni nods and sits next to me on the couch. I consider myself lucky not to have anyone die on me while I was very young, I say. My father lost his mother when he was 11. It's horrible to experience that kind of pain that young. And remember I said when I started this whole conversational journey here, it was all that Billy Garland, but he lost someone early. So whether or not you guys have this conversation, again, people bond over trauma, and those bonds are oftentimes stronger than other bonds, right? So let's see. That's her first major loss. Where are we here? And it doesn't go away and it doesn't get better. They said time would help. A sob breaks through her throat, but it doesn't. It doesn't get better. And I miss my son. And you see, she pleads, I miss my son. She moves from the loss that she felt with Sandra to the loss that she felt because her son is gone. And that's sometimes how grief works. It's not very linear. One, because these feelings may have been like bound up within her. And so one remembrance brings up another and it kind of, and this is why sometimes I realize that people don't want to do the work that it takes because it's not easy. The soul work that it takes to get through your trauma is not easy. Some of this stuff, like how Jasmine Guy sets the scene, is her having to relive something. So before she could even get to, this is the backstory, before she can get to why she changed her name or when she changed her name or how she changed her name, she gives her the situation that leads up to that point, right? Because before that, she was buck wild. You know what I mean? So Afeni leans on my shoulder and I rock her. Her body quivers as she catches her breath. Afeni's pain erupts out of nowhere, it seems. I used to think I was pushing buttons or in some way making her cry, but it is nothing I do. Afeni cries often, suddenly, completely. And that's grief, okay? It's grief. She feels grateful. Say sorry. She feels gratitude, happiness, frustration, and loneliness intensely. She feels in bold primary colors, not pastel. Anger is rage. Peace is joy. Sadness is sorrow. Grief is agony. I told Afeni until she comes back from the pain of missing. Sorry, I hold her, sorry, until she comes back from the pain of missing Tupac. She's ready to go back to her story now, so I can learn about where she came from. In my mind, I connect the dots of Afeni's childhood. I connect the 11-year-old Alice Faye with the 15-year-old disciple Deb. I try to connect them with the 50-year-old Afeni I know now. I picture her stalking 8th Avenue in a pack of hard blink girls. Sorry. They drink Thunderbird out of paper sacks. They break antennas off of people's cars and then whip unsuspected strangers with their new weapons. I can't. I picture Crotona Park and its public pool Afeni told me about. The water sparkles red under streetlights from the blood spill hours before. Razors, knives, ice picks, and chains. She rises from my shoulder and lights a cigarette. I ever tell you about Ray? Ray. So now we on to somebody else now. Ray was my boyfriend, I guess. That's what you call it. He was 33 and I was 18. What was she doing with Ray? Ray. We used to do things together. We'd go to all the events, discovering the new woman and new man we wanted to be. She would do, I don't like saying she would do LSD and sit on the fire escape listening to Jimi Hendrix and Sly and the Family Stone. And we would visualize actually dreaming about, no, she would dream, I ain't gonna say me. And she would visualize actually dreaming about being a hitman, contract killers. Huh? They wanted to be professional killers. I think that was a common fantasy at the time. Black people were taking a lot of abuse. She would dream of herself as someone who could and would take care of some of the grievances. This is pre-Panther. There's always something that sets the tone, that introduces the conversation of why somebody would make what others would consider a very radical decision, right? All right. Okay. She wonders how Ray the Hitman is going to get us back to the day Afeni found her name. Jasmine is like, bruh, can we get to the question that I asked? Because we seem to be all over the place. She's not even trying to hear that. Yo, she says she want to get back to when you change your name. Ain't nobody trying to hear about Ray. Let me see here. But I figure we can get back to the golden streets of Harlem some other time. What kind of events did y'all go to? I asked. You and Ray. Where'd you go? Be-ins, with the hippies, everybody get together and just be. Political rallies in the park, we would go to those together. But after Sandra died, I dumped Ray. Well, he was a womanizer, and I couldn't deal with his petty blink anymore. And she's also looking for acceptance, what she didn't get from her father. And so her going from place to place to look for it may seem like, okay, what's going on with her? But at the core of it, that's kind of what it is, right? And so let me see. After Sandra died like she did, Ray seemed trifling to me. I couldn't be bothered, so I wandered. I would do stuff by myself, like go to Bembi's. Okay, so what's a Bembi? A Bembi is a drum ceremony to honor. Here it is now. Remember, I said it was in passing that we saw in the articles, and I read the article. Here it is. So she went to a Bembi ceremony it's a ceremony where they call on the Orisha. Afeni smiles. See, I told you I would get back to your scene. There are your drummers. And my women draped in color and patterns from the motherland, I smiled to. So she asks, what is an Orisha? Swahili or something? Yoruba. She says she studied the culture and religion, and Orisha is like, she searches, a god, I asked. No, not a god. There's only one god. But these are like the messengers, she says. Each one is different and has its own personality, so to speak. Each one rules their own territory. So again, Remember, she's going from pillar to post trying to find where she belongs. And along the way, like I said before, she's touching a lot of things. I said it in a few videos before. Okay. So when she gets into this, and you may be passing through, you don't know what you carry with you even after you move past this point. We know you carried the name with you, but you may have carried other things, but depending on who put their hands on you, how far you went into this conversation. So she says, oh, like the deities in Greek mythology? Yes, it's like that. She says her teacher, who introduced her to the Yoruba beliefs, said that her deity was a certain deity that I'm not even gonna. She rules the wind and the tempest and the Niger River, she says. So she had a teacher. She was going to these sittings, these drumming festivals. They still got some drumming sessions in the park, Prospect Park, different places. They still got it to this day. So whatever spiritual teacher was there. Now, like I said before, in the late 60s, early 70s, there was a guy, and these people were in Harlem, who ended up starting a community in South Carolina. And I'm not mistaken, the community is still there today. So this seems like it was in the beginnings of that, before the actual community actually, opened for people to come down. Okay. So she said, well, that makes sense. She says to her tempestuous friend, there's more to it than that. It gets very involved. That's why I asked before, how far in did she go? Did she get initiated? Because she says it gets very involved. Like, what does it mean? What are you saying? Did you do the initiation for them to change your name? Because it's not like some places where they change your name. If you do, there's other things. Let's just say. Anyway. But that's the part I related to the most. So there were other things, but she was like, she couldn't get down with all of that. She just related to a portion of it. She does believe that that deity is her deity. So now she's connecting herself with some type of, quote, ancestral spirituality that that's another story. Okay. She says she does, and I do believe, no, she does believe in the name, which also given to her at this time. So at that time, when she's studying and she's learning and she's being open to this conversation, she gets the name Afeni, which means dear one, lover of people. This is what my teacher saw in me, she says, that I was a lover of people. It's amazing with all the stuff I was into, he saw me as a lover of people. Afeni is proud of this. So I'm wondering if it was the guy, because in other articles it says it was a priestess, but she says him. And so that leads me to believe, and this guy was out of Harlem. I forget his name right now. I would have to look it up. But this leads me to believe it may have been him and not some priestess, because that's what she's saying. But it fit, or you would have taken it on. Oh, sorry. But it fit, or you wouldn't have taken it on, I say. She says, my mother never could pronounce my name, though. When she visited her in prison, she'd be the last one in line, so no one behind her could hear her mispronounce her name. Afeni takes a deep drag. She sucks the smoke into her grim smile. She mispronounced panther, too. Ashamed, I asked? No, not ashamed, just intimidated. My mother accepted what I was doing. She was proud that I had a voice, that I had the energy to fight and speak up for myself and poor beat down folk. She was proud of that because she never could have done that. She wished she had, though I know that. But she couldn't say your name, I say. She was afraid to say any of it and bring it into being. Her mother knew a little something about a little something. It's not necessarily afraid you have to be circumcised. Let me see what her name Alice meant before she changes her name. Of noble rank. Alice means of noble rank, and it's Germanic. Noble or exalted. And that may have been why she walked around, like people are saying, very prideful, very how she carries herself. And Fae means loyalty or belief. It's actually a variation of faith. So her name before this point, her birth name, put the energy on her that also contributed to some of the experience that she was having. But let's continue. Where am I? Okay. I used to think she was weak, speaking about her mother, but now I know she was doing the best with what she got. There are other ways to be strong, other ways to fight your battles. My journey was completely different to my mother's. I can't even compare our lives, really. I grew very quickly. I learned a lot in a very short period of time. My lessons came to me through different people, like your Yoruba teacher. Why she keep bringing that up? Yes, but also people, just relationships I had, like the dude Shaheem. Okay, now we got a new dude. He had been a Muslim under Elijah Muhammad, founder of the Nation of Islam and early mentor of Malcolm X. Afeni, Afeni. So she'd smoke weed with Shaheem. Shaheem, I thought you was a Muslim. What you over there doing smoking weed, Shaheem? Anyway, and just soak up this whole new philosophy as black as beautiful, black as strong. I mean, this philosophy was not completely new in historical terms. Garvey introduced this awakening in the 20s and 30s, but it was new to me at 18. I was naive, and that stuff Shaheem was saying about being black, the best color in the world, and men should honor and protect their women, that stuff right there blew me away because that's what she was looking for. She was looking for acceptance. She was looking for protection. She was looking from it from the male figure, right? And so now, it's like many girls, because she's 18, and women get caught up when dudes get a little knowledge, even onto today, and they start spitting that knowledge to them and in ways in which she is lacking. And that's how oftentimes women come into knowledge via a man. But then the mistake that they make is that they put the man up on the pedestal. And when the man inevitably falls, so does, not all the time, but I've witnessed quite a few times, when the man falls, then so does her dedication to the knowledge. And that's just, that's a shame. Anyway, Shaheem is spitting game, bunning weed, and she says, and this was the beginning of my awakening. A rebirth of sorts from Alice Faye to Afeni. My behind starts to tighten in my crotch. Sorry, my behind starts to tighten in my crouched position. I stretch my legs in front of me to get blood back into my glutes. Yes, but I'm not there yet. I knew even then that I was about to do something, and I waited for a sign to show me what that something was going to be. See, first I had to be open to receive any new information. Up until now, I wasn't listening to anyone at home or at school. I dropped out. You was running around drinking Thunderbird, smoking weed, and trying heroin. I've been in the streets doing whatever the blink I wanted to. So now this transformation has just made me ready to receive. What transformation? All I know, wait a minute. See, there's a part that's missing because, it must be the loss of the friend. Then you seeking knowledge. And then you meet the Yoruba dude, and now you meet the Muslim dude. Because I'm like, when did the transformation happen? But anyway, let me continue. The first thing I must do is be still. I must be still first so I can listen and be still. And I already told you listening was hard for me. So that means, sister, that you was in your masculine energy. Because when listening is hard, that means you're not in your feminine, which is being willing to receive. Y'all, this is commentary. So, for those who, again, I say this again, I want to thank you for joining us. But if you just come for straight audible, I'm going to have to, this is YouTube. I mean, I have to put my commentary on the situation. But let's continue. So when you stop to listen, what did you hear? I can't with Jasmine. My legs fall asleep. I've been sitting on them so long, the blood stopped flowing. I stretched them forward and leaned over my thighs. I get so involved in Afeni's story, I forgot it's as if I'm roaming the streets of the South Bronx, as if I'm down in the nasty, sweet burn of Thunderbird. Thunderbird. Let's keep going. So if I'm getting slapped by my, what? Did I miss something? She said, oh, okay. As if I'm getting slapped by my high school boyfriend. So here's your scene, Miss Director. Now Afeni takes a turn at setting up the moment. It's Saturday in Harlem, and Bobby Seale's in town. Anybody who knows anybody speaks on the corner of 7th Ave and 125th. Malcolm spoke on that corner. If it must take violence to get the black man his human rights in this country, I'm for violence exactly as you know the Irish, the Poles, or the Jews would be if they were flagrantly discriminated against. Marcus Garvey spoke there. Men and women, what are you here for? To live unto yourselves, unto your body manures the earth, or to live God's purpose to the fullest? For 250 years, we have been a race of slaves. For 50, a race of parasites. Marcus was bugging. Now we propose to end it, all that. No more fear, no more cringing, no more sycophantic begging and pleading. I'm telling you, this is where you go to speak your mind and hear the words. So Bobby Seale's going to be there. And I go just like everybody else. There are all kinds of folks there: mothers, hustlers, teachers, domestics, kids, and gangsters. All of us on the corner listening to Bobby Seale. He says the Panther Party is opening offices in New York and that they are coming and bringing change and order to our community, coming to heal the wounds of slavery and Jim Crow, coming to take arms against the aggression. They will not beat our blinks anymore. Well, I've never heard nothing like that before. Then somebody on the platform next to Bobby Seale holds up a photograph. It is a picture of Huey Newton on the steps of the California State Capitol, armed and standing tall. Well, no wonder she's attracted to it. She was over there with Ray daydreaming, right? Like she was in the Donnie Brasco movie. So when she sees this, she was like, oh, yeah. Where are we? So she sees the photograph. I see that picture of a black man armed and looking for a white man in the eyes and saying, no, not laying down and getting stomped on over and over again. When I see that, that is a powerful image for me. Afeni shakes her head at the magnitude of the day. Then she continues. And then Bobby Seale says the 10-point program of the Black Panther Party. Nothing sounds like Bobby Seale when he says the 10-point program of the Black Panther Party. Because we the people like theatrics, okay? You can't just come in there. You have to entertain the people, tickle their ears. Let me drink a little bit of my beaten ginger lemonade here. That is pretty good. I tried a new lemonade, people. Okay, number one, we want freedom. We want power to determine the destiny of our Black and oppressed communities. Maybe one day we should go over some of this here because I find it interesting. Number two, we want full employment for our people. Number three, we want an end to the robbery of the capitalists of Black and oppressed communities. Number four, we want decent housing fit for the shelter of human beings. Number five, we want education that teaches our true history and our role in the present day society. And that's happening now, and the people are pushing back. What they call in critical race theory and putting the truth of what's happening on the forefront, and that has caused the whole situation. Number six, although they just, access to education, they just kind of like done the affirmative action. But let's continue. Number six, we want complete free health care for all Blacks and oppressed people. That you got to go to Canada for that one. Number seven, we want an immediate end to police brutality. Number eight, we want an immediate end to all wars of aggression. That's a big one, I interject. They're all big ones, Afeni acknowledges. Number nine, trials by jury of our peers and 10 people, community control. It looks like she's remembered this all from her head. It's longer than that, but you get the picture. Anyway, Bobby Seale, I thought it was 10 points. Did I stop it? That was 9. Bobby Seale saying that right there with passion, with intelligence. The way he said those 10 points made me want that more than, anything. So there I was, wrapped in my Africanness for the first time, loving myself and loving now that there was something I could do with my life. There was now something I could do with all this aggression and all this fear, because up until this point, she says that she wasn't spit. She says, I hate when Afeni puts herself down so completely, so unforgivingly. Afeni, you were pissed, I say. You were angry. You were a kid. She says, sweetness, let me tell you something. All that blink I was doing to people against humanity, robbing people, beating people, that wasn't spit. I'm telling you, son, 18 years old, what was going on? Before she joined the party, she was messed up. She didn't say mess. She was, I would slap a blink in a minute. She cussed her mama out and disrespected her, left her crying on the kitchen floor. And that right there is Yeah, Torah tells you, I mean, honor your mother and your father. For her to acknowledge that, it says that your days may be long upon the land which the most high power give you. So her violating her mother in such a way, problematic. Would you be proud of that stuff? I left home and lived with a brother off the street that would pay my way. That's where I was. And what did your mother do to you, fam? She got you away from who you said. That's why I said she identified with the abuser, which was the father, because the mother sacrifice got you away from the abuser, out here struggling. And before you say, we away from the abuser, now you turn around and attacking the mother in the same way that the father was attacking her. Now you became the abuser to your mom. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Where are we? Okay, so she's living with some random dude, and that's where I was. I'd cut someone just for the blink of it and never look back. I told you, she liked to fight and she had a mouth. Afeni doesn't like to be denied, even on her own behalf. So the Panther Party for me at that time clarified my situation. She says, they took my rage and channeled it against them. She points outside. Instead of us, she holds her heart. They educated my mind and gave me direction. With that direction came hope. And I love them for giving me that because I never had hope in my life. I never dreamed of a better place of hope or hope for a better world for my mama and my sister and me. She says she just never did. They took me and looked at me and said, Afeni, you are strong, so use your strength to help the weak. You are smart, so use your mind to teach the ignorant. And that's what I did. Sekou, my section leader in the Bronx, Lumumba, the section leader of Harlem, Kathleen Cleaver, Eldridge's wife, and the only visible female force on the party. They were brilliant to me, she says. I wanted what they had. That seems to be a reoccurring theme. That seems to be a reoccurring theme. Yeah. Afeni makes her point and closes her case, but I'm not finished making mine. I'm just saying that you had all of that in you before you met the Panthers. You discount that, your own brilliance, your own courage. No, she says. No, I don't. She says that her grandmother always told her that she was smart and could be a great teacher one day. This is what I'm saying. Let me continue. But she didn't accept that. All I'm saying is when you dog yourself like that, when you discount all the stuff the God gave you and your mama gave you and your grandmama gave you, you're doing a disservice to God. And you would not tell some 17 or 18-year-old girl at the Tupac Amaru Shakur Center for Performing Arts that she was blinked up. You wouldn't do it. You would not tell some gangbanger off the street that he wasn't blinked. So don't do it to yourself. There, I'm done. I'm through. This is Jasmine telling her, why you told, but again, she was there. She knows what she did to why she's coming to this point. You know what I mean? Anywho, I'm gonna have to turn on the lights. Afeni looks at me, a little surprised, basically because I'm not scared of her, and I think she's used to scaring people off. You owe me like $500 because that's some blink you would have learned in therapy, I tell her. I guess at what point do you take responsibility for your actions, she asks. I guess that is the question, I say, and I don't know the answer. Well, let's go back to when I joined the party. That is when I felt most empowered. I believed in them, Afeni suggests. There's so much going on right now. My goodness, man. There's so much going on right now. Because her disapproval, she's looking for acceptance from outside. Because, like they're saying, oh, give me 1 second. 1 second, peoples. All right, all right. Thank you for your patience. Where were we? Yeah, she's looking for outside acceptance because even though she's witnessing abuse, I'm not saying that people don't have uh, different levels of tolerance. Although she's witnessing abuse, she's not firsthand being in the home, being firsthand abuse. She's witnessing the abuse. But when she goes outside, the acceptance that she's looking for in her surroundings, I think that's what's angering her more than anything. Because as she's saying, her grandmother told her that she didn't believe when her own people were telling her that she's good, right? So that's interesting. But let me continue. Doo-doo-doo. Okay. She says, so as she felt empowered, she believed in them, Afeni suggests. Believed in what, I asked? The principles, the plan. I started the breakfast program to feed children on their way to school. I joined because I could use my mouth for speeches to raise money for the program. I joined because I was fearless. I was a gangster. She was a gangster. And I'm not going to say me, she. And she could do whatever was necessary to keep the party alive. She joined for free clinics. She joined for all that because it would have helped my mama if we had that kind of help from our community. Those programs would have helped my mother with her two girls tremendously. And those programs would have helped my mother in a way that would have saved her dignity. I joined because the Panthers answered the need of the people in my community. She believed in those programs and still believe in participating in your community, especially in schools. She believed in restoring the community from external structures of that community to actual families. She believed it is the responsibility of every individual in the community to take back the schools, take back the minds, take back the bodies, and nurture the children. That is the job then and now. That's where I am. So Afeni is quiet. And where does this philosophy come from, Afeni? Your mother, your grandmother, your father? Where does the sense of responsibility come from? Your teacher, your great grandmother? I make her remember. I've always been dutiful minded, duty bound. I'm a big fighter for making sure a little girl takes care of herself to the extent she can. I was that little girl, and I fully understand there was a bunch I couldn't do. But what I could do based on what I knew to be true. She goes on to say, James Cleveland says it best. You know when you know what you know what you know. Mhm. She thinks God always knows and gives you the ability to know. We don't all come here with the same access, but they come here. We all have abilities, the ability to know. Sorry, it is instinct. For me, it is not scientific. This ability we have. She knows that I know. I know that I know that I know. And then she says she doesn't give a blink what you say. Okay, now she cussing out the interviewer. Help her. She says she already know what's going to happen because God knows. That's what keeps me alive. That is what has helped me. And Jasmine, you don't want your daughter to lose her ability to know. Are we talking about intuition here? Because all of this knowing. She cannot lose her instinct because there lies her survival. Absolutely. When all is said and done, it is this truth, this knowledge within me that you're talking about that has always guided me. It is when I cannot hear that voice that I have been lost and conflicted. Shogun, Afeni says. Have you read Shogun? No. I remember it was a miniseries with Richard Chamberlain my daddy used to watch. Yo, somebody get home, girls. Afeni shakes her head. I know she wishes I would read more instead of watching TV. That book, for me, teaches the purest form of martial arts and how it's related to woman, duty, and honor, accepting your duty and finding honor in it. Like my grandmother, I remember my Nana again. She cared for my grandfather for 10 years, cleaned his bedding, lifted his paralyzed leg and arm, shaved him, fed him, wiped the drool from the corners of his mouth. For 15 years, my Nana was only 410, sorry, a little thing, but strong. And she was adamant about caring for my grandfather. This is sorry, Jasmine talking. Of course, that's all the great, wonderful people that we want to grow up to be. They accept their duty and find honor in doing it. And you felt duty bound to the Panthers, I asked. She's like, can we get back on track here? I felt duty bound to my people, my community, the mothers and children of my community that were my mother and me and Glow, which would be her sister. It was a great fight, Afeni. The war against oppression, the revolution, whatever you want to call it. And the soldiers were young, hopeful, angry, aggressive, and intelligent and vibrant. You were also passionate and fearless. Afeni seems to have left me for a minute. She seems to be remembering a time I cannot see. The main offices of the Panther headquarters, a rally around the corner from the Harlem apartment. Dinner with Sekou and Lumumba telling me stories, war stories of white cops beating them up. Eventually, she comes back. It was a war that we lost, she says. Look at the forces against you, Afeni. I wonder if she's forgotten that the COINTELPRO, CIA, J. Edgar Hoover, for God's sake, she says. What about the spies? What about the double agents? What about the bogus charges, the constant court hearings and incarceration? What about the letters to Huey? The war, Afeni shakes her head. She says they lost. What do you mean you lost? I'm upset. You were sabotaged. You were infiltrated, spied on, they said. Don't help your people. Fight amongst yourselves. The Black Panthers imploded. She said, we dropped the ball. So she's remembering things very differently. Afeni, the party was infiltrated, sabotaged. What about COINTELPRO, the split between Eldridge and Huey, the phony letter to Eldridge, the arrest of Cochise, the bombing, the Omar offices? What about the murder? She's like telling her like she wasn't there, right? And then she goes on and on. She says, baby, I know all this. Afeni interjects. I know. Where are we? Go back. I know the mess. You said yourself there were spies in the party in your Harlem office. You told Lumumba even before you all got arrested that you smelled the setup. Jasmine, what I'm saying now, what I know now to be true is this. We dropped the ball. Personally, if I just speaking for myself and kept focused on what we were supposed to be doing. Afeni stops herself. She methodically snuffs out her cigarette as if she's never done it before. She's thinking. She wants me to understand. There was a period in development of the party, she says, when in answer to the unjust attacks, we reacted emotionally, I conclude. That's right. That they lost it, dropped the ball, didn't know what they were dealing with. They were in over their head, and worst of all, they were not listening. They were not listening to old people. They removed any semblance of spirituality from the movement. So when the danger came, what did we have, she says. I listened, fascinated by the tone of Afeni's admissions. I've never heard her speak so clearly about what happened to her once beloved Panthers. She is without resentment. Ultimately, she directs, we are each responsible in a time of stress and trauma to hold that ground. Each person must be able to hold the ground on which they are standing. If the ground is not solid, you cannot stand on it. Not having a spiritual base, not acknowledging the greatness of God, not saying we can't do this without God. We had no solid ground. Instead, we turned. This is interesting. She said they turned against God, and how you gonna win like that? Like Lawrence said, how you gonna win if you ain't right within? Right? You have to have a moral imperative to win. For example, that's the thing that Israel. That's what she's starting to sound like to me. She's like a chapter from Judges. For example, that's the thing that Israel has lost, which ultimately, if they don't get that back, they cannot win. You cannot do that in this world and expect that God is going to allow peace, harmony, and serenity to stay around you. We didn't understand that. We drew violence. They drew violence onto themselves. They drew bitterness to themselves. That's my opinion. And this is a sober reflection. This part right here, I can't speak for all of it. A sober reflection on from somebody who was in it and is able to look back and say, okay, these are the parts that was missing. And this is why it inevitably happened like this. And a lot of people don't realize all of the narratives that tells you about what's going on with Israel. It's not just like, oh, and they won and they won and they won. It's like, no, you turned away, right? You just appealed to your base desires. You went off. And then this is where you open yourself up. You become susceptible to people to come and conquer you. So based on what she's saying, this is what was happening. You know, Billy told us that it was free love and people was doing what they want to do. And before that, she already drew violence onto herself and karmic wise by attacking people that wasn't, necessarily attacking her. So lots going on here. Anyway, Afeni snuffs out her last cigarette and balls up. When did she light up the other one? Didn't she snuff the other one? Afeni snuffs out her last cigarette and balls up the paper from her Newport pack. We need cigarettes, she says. And that's it right there. Sorry, stay tuned for next chapter when she meets Lumumba Shakur. So, to recap, that's just how she got her name. It's important, whatever name we're born with. I've said this before. It gives, every time it's pronounced, it puts a certain energy on us, a certain vibration on us, right? So we see that her name meant, what did her first name mean? I already looked it up. Faye is a variation of faith, and Alice is a variation of, I just looked it up. Of noble rank, right? So she was closed. She was in her masculine energy. She was not in the sense of not being open to receive, not being open to taking instruction. But she also had a masculine injury, right? Which takes her to the space that she ultimately ends up in. Whatever they were offering in the Yoruba space, she only took the part that she wanted, and she continued to go on, like she said, to find a space that she can fully express herself. And in this part, Black is beautiful, Black power. She would have been the perfect model for the poster child for the revolution in the sense of how she looks, right? So it's like people rejecting you because you don't fit a certain part. But when the narrative changes now, she fits that part. And so now she feels a place that she can call home. Was it the best decision at the time? She possibly thought it was, right? But as we move forward, we realize that other things were happening. You wanted so much to be there to save the community, to be there for other people, that your own people were sacrificed in the interim, right? When I say sacrifice, like their needs were put on the back burner so that you can meet the needs of the people. We've seen this conversation when the Torah says, and no man should save them, right? When you look at Moses, when he's trying to put the needs of the people on his back, it's too much. Anytime you go out here, and you don't even have to go as far back as Moses, you could go to Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey. Anytime you try to put the whole needs of the people on your back, you're asking for it. Because that Messiah conversation, historically, it doesn't work out, right? It doesn't work out. So that's what we have right there. So join us next time for chapter 4 of Evolution of a Revolutionary. Let me know your thoughts in the description below, and we'll talk again soon. All right? 1.